Hello, today I'd like to show you how to make a little fun covered notepad just using some felt. I've used some acrylic felt, but you could use a nice felted wool if you chose to. So to make this we need to have obviously a little notepad, and then we need some felt, we need a shape that we're going to applique on, plus we need some elastic, and I've also used a glue stick and a tape measure. So to start off with, I'll just show you how I've measured up so I know what size to cut my felt. So I need to measure the width of my cover, which in this case is 2 7/8 inches. And I need to allow a little bit of extra, so I'm going to allow that 1/8 to make it 3 inches, and then I'm going to allow a little bit more for the seam area, which is sticking out here, so probably 1/8 of an inch each side. So to go over that again, I've got to measure my cover, which is 2 7/8 inches, then a little bit of allowance, which brings it to 3, plus another 1/8 of an inch each side, which makes it a total of 3 1/4 inches. So I've got my cover measurement, plus I've added 3/8 of an inch in total, so I've ended up with a size of 3 1/4 inches. So I have already cut my piece of felt ready, and I have cut it at 3 1/4 inches wide. Now to do the length that I need my piece of felt, I have measured right from the edge of the cover all the way around, right round to the back of the cover, and just a little bit loosely. You don't need to make this too tight, and it works out to be about 9 1/4 inches. And then I've added on my little seam area amount, so I've come up to 9 1/2 inches, but we haven't finished measuring yet. Now we have to measure inside the cover so that we can make a little pocket for where the cover of the notepad goes. So on my cover here, because I've got nice little holes punched in the cover where the spiral goes, I've pretty much measured just from there down, and it comes to 3 7/8 plus my 1/8 seam area, and just to make it a nice round number, I've made it 4 inches. So I have to add on 4 inches at both ends because we've got two covers. So I had 9 1/2 inches plus 4 inches plus 4 inches altogether. That makes a total of 17 1/2 inches. So I have cut my piece of felt 17 1/2 inches long. And as well as that, I've cut a nice shape that I'm going to applique onto the front. And so now we need to position that applique. So this is where I use the markings on my board to help me measure things. I know that I'm going to be turning up 4 inches for my cover, so I've lined up the end of my felt with my markings, and this at my 4 inch I can pop a little pin either side just to see where that's going to be, and then I can lay my shape on top of that. Now I'm allowing about 1 inch from where the bottom of the shape is, and I can see that because of the markings on my board, and I'm going to centre it either side. And that's where I'm going to position my applique, and I'm just going to use a little bit of a glue just to hold it in place, which just makes it a little bit easier. This is a glue stick, don't go putting heaps and heaps of glue, it's just enough just to hold it in place. And I'm just going to position that on there. And now I'm going to take that to the sewing machine, and I can take these pins out for the moment because they'll probably just get in the way when I'm sewing, and I'm just going to applique this now just with a straight stitch on the sewing machine. So now I'm at the machine with my heart ready to applique. I've got a matching thread in the top and I've got a cream thread in the bottom, and I'm just going to do a straight stitch all the way around the heart, just close to the edge on the actual heart. And I'm going to stop when there's a curve. If your machine will allow you to do a needle down, that's really helpful when you're doing applique. Sometimes you need to stop and turn every couple of stitches to get that curve right. And I just do a little back stitch when I'm finishing so that it's locked off my threads, and now I can just trim those threads close to the stitching. And there I have my heart nicely appliqued. So now I need to go back to the cutting board so that I can do some more measuring and pinning so that I can sew the pocket ends up for the cover of the... So here I am back on my measuring cutting board, which I used to help me with my measuring. I'm actually going to turn my piece over so that the applique is on the underside, and I'm going to again line up at the end so that I can work out where the measurements are going to be. Now I need to fold up at the 4-inch line. So you could pop a pin in the sides there if you wanted to, or you can just fold that so that the fold is along the 4-inch line from the end, and then I just turn that over and pop a couple of pins on the right side because I will be sewing later from the right side. Now I need to do the same thing at the other end. So again I take the other end to the end marking, and at the 4-inch line I fold that end up. And same again, I turn that over and I just pop a couple of pins in to hold that in place. Now the other thing I need to do is pop my piece of elastic in. Now this piece of elastic is just about a 5-inch length. It really just needs to be long enough so that it goes past the sides of your cover and allows for a turn in. Now I'm going to sew this in approximately 1 inch up from the end, which is pretty much level with the bottom of your applique there. So I might position just one end in to start with, and I'll pop a pin in there just to hold that in place. But only one end. The other end we can put in as we go around. So now I'm going to go back to the sewing machine and stitch the cover together. So I'm going to position this. I'm going to start somewhere near the back cover. I've got it the right side up with my ends folded underneath, and I'm going to sew with about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. I haven't measured that, but it actually fits quite nicely against this foot that I'm using here. So come up with some arrangement where you can be sure that you can keep yourself a straight line fairly close to the edge. And I'm just going to do a little back stitch just to lock that. And now I'm just going to stitch all the way around, making sure that your little ends sit nice and level when you're coming up to them. Just keep on going. And when I come to this piece of elastic that's sticking out here, I'm going to stitch over it, but I'm actually going to just reverse and then keep going till I get to the corner. And then I'm going to come all the way along. Now I need to get ready with the piece of elastic. I want to sew this end in. This is a little bit fiddly. So I'm going to bring it across and I'm going to tuck that end so that it sits in between the two pieces of felt there, and hopefully level with the one on the other side. And then I need to hold this piece of elastic out of the way a little bit. You can pull over here, that's okay. You can put a pin in there if you feel you need to, and then I'm going to stitch, and I'm going to do a little bit of a reverse over the elastic, and then I'm going to take it out of the machine and cut my threads because I've locked off by doing the reversing, and then pushing the elastic to the back this time. I'm going to start in exactly the same place as I finished, right on the elastic, and do a little back stitch to lock it, and then I'm going to continue on round till I get to where I started. And there I've finished sewing, so I'm going to pull that out after I've locked it off and cut my threads. take my pins out. Now I can trim away these threads where I started again. The reason we had to stop and start is because we've made a loop with the elastic and there's no way of just sewing past it. So here's my finished cover, my elastic's here, I've got 2 pockets here for the covers. So now I just position the covers inside there, just slide it in, it should fit quite snugly. And the other end, slide that in. And that should now sit quite nicely when you fold that over, and that little strip of elastic there will hold it closed when you're not using it. So felt is so much fun to work with because it doesn't fray. You can just use the edges like that. One of the reasons I've gone for a long pocket for the cover is because if you're writing on the notepad, you may find that there's a ridge. If it's only a short pocket, you'd have a ridge that you're trying to write on, which wouldn't be very helpful. So there's my little covered notepad, and I've made a couple of others in other colours just to give you some other ideas of colours and things. They would be great party favours for a children's party or a great gift for people. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching.